Hi, welcome to Building Wealth and Mental Health. My name is Randall Avery. Today we have a special guest, Dana Dorsett. Dana's background is in speech language pathology. She manages a clinic who serves population who consist of those with developmental delays, autism, cerebral palsy, and cancer patients. Dana shares how she grew up in Mississippi in a blended family and how her career progression was heavily influenced by her aunts. Dana experienced a career path with many stops. She started her career in the Dallas County school system as a speech language pathologist and soon realized her role was not a fit. She bounced around a couple of jobs until she arrived at Children's Health. There, she worked her way up to a management role where she's responsible now for a team of 15 people. During our interview, Dana provides advice around picking a career while in college, what to do when you begin to doubt your career choice, management advice, and financial tricks her aunt gave her to allow her to build wealth. I hope you enjoy my episode with Dana Dorsett. How you guys doing today? My name is Randall Avery, owner of RSA Deasil Advisors, a wealth management firm serving clients in the Atlanta metro area and across the United States. Today, we have a special guest today. Her name is Dana. She is a manager in the mental health space, so she's going to give us insight on what it means to manage an operation in the mental health space. So Dana, if you don't mind, take a second and introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Dana Dorsett. I am clinical manager at one of the outpatient clinics, Specialty Center Richardson at Children's Health.
That is awesome. So can you please describe your current role and the type of organization that you work in today?
So as I stated just previously, I am a clinical manager over an outpatient therapy clinic within Children's Health. With that clinic, we provide services, occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech therapy to pediatric patients. Children's Health is a nonprofit health system. It's the only pediatric level 1 trauma center in North Texas. Children's Health has grown to become the only academic health system in North Texas dedicated exclusively to the care of children from birth, and we do serve some kids into adulthood. And we're also partnered with UT Southwestern, which is a research institution.
Awesome. So in what you do on a day in and day out basis, what populations do you serve?
So me personally, I do not have a caseload, but at the Richardson location, we serve various patient populations. So these populations could range from children with developmental delays, autism, cerebral palsy, brain injuries, cardiac issues, cancer patients. I can go on and on and on.
Awesome. So let's go a little bit into your background. Think of yourself, how would you describe your childhood before you were in high school?
It was very colorful. Okay. I grew up in kind of a blended extended family. My aunts, uncles, my grandmothers were all involved in my upbringing. But overall, I had a pretty decent childhood.
Awesome. And when you went into high school, did you receive any exposure to the mental health space?
No, I did not.
And when was your first experience to say, hey, this is a field that I can go into and I can practice as a professional?
So actually it was after I went to college, shout out to Jackson State University. And I was undecided. And then I thought I wanted to major in biology, but then realized biology wasn't my calling. Mm-hmm. And so my aunt actually was a special education teacher. And she mentioned speech language pathology, and it interested me. And so I did some research. And then luckily at Jackson State, they had an undergraduate program. So that's kind of how I was introduced into kind of the field of speech language pathology.
When you decided, hey, speech language pathology is the way I want to go, were you thinking of how much money does this path make? And when were you introduced to the idea of, hey, this is the amount of money this career makes?
I had no idea about the kind of the monetary or kind of what I would make in this field. I really didn't know that until I started my first job with DISD. So I had no idea.
Wow. And did you have any idea of how many years of school or training you had to do before you could begin practicing?
So yes, because my major was biology and I wanted to switch my major in the middle of undergrad. I went to go talk to one of the chairs over the speech language pathology program, which at Jackson State was known as communicative disorders program. And so she explained to me kind of what was involved in a number of years and the courses that I would need to take in order to receive my license and my certification in the field. So yes, I was aware.
Did you have to receive a graduate degree to perform in the speech pathology world?
So at the time when I graduated in undergrad, speech language pathology was going through kind of a change. And so you could practice with a bachelor's degree, but only in the school system at that time. If you wanted to practice outside of that, you had to go to graduate school.
Gotcha. So what helped you make the decision whether you wanted to practice in the school or outside the school, whether you go to grad school or not?
Well, so in undergrad, we had to take courses related to speech language pathology or general courses, right? And then also for the program at Jackson State, we were pretty lucky because we actually were able to do some practicums. So we went out to kindergarten schools, or kindergartens, not schools, kindergartens, and we did some therapy and we did some hearing screenings. And so a lot of undergraduate programs, you really don't get that type of experience. And so from there, I thought at the time that I wanted to work in the school system. And then after I graduated, because it was very hard work when you're doing classes in undergrad and doing practicums and things of that nature, I was like, I don't really know if I want to go to grad school. I don't really know if this is something I really want to do. But after sitting out a year, I decided that I did want to do that. And so I went back and got my graduate degree. And I went to work in the school system and I just didn't like it. And so from there, I worked in various entities of various settings until I kind of figured out where I wanted to be.
So what was your most influential class in undergraduate that said, this is where I want to go, that confirmed your trajectory?
I can't really say it was a class, but I would say what the practicums that we had to do. So not more so the practicums that I took in undergrad, but the ones that I took in graduate school. So we had to, when I say practicums, you go to a setting. So it can be a skilled nursing facility, it can be a school district, it can be a mental institution, which was one of my practicums. So you go to different settings. It can be with adults, it can be with pediatrics. So from there, I was able to figure out what setting that I wanted to work, that I wanted to have my career in, as well as which population, pediatrics versus geriatrics.
Gotcha. So now you're going into grad school. How did you make that decision? Did you know how much that decision would cost? What was going through your mind at that age?
So initially, like I said, I really didn't know after undergrad because it was hard work. It was really hard work. I wasn't sure if that's the career that I wanted to move forward with. So I set out a year, but then I decided that I probably needed to give it a try since I had spent so much time taking those courses. And so I decided to go to grad school. So going into grad school, I knew kind of what the expectations were because they were similar to undergrad, but just a little bit more responsibility. And because I had set out a year and had a whole nother kind of job. I knew those questions to ask about grad school, the cost and things of that nature. So yes, I felt like I was prepared for that.
What advice would you give to anybody who wants to go to grad school in the speech pathology area? Any tidbits that you learned either before or while you were in grad school, or even after you went out school and started practicing?
What information I would give them about grad school in relation to how grad school is, or the field?
Anything, whether it's how to survive, either socially, academically, even how to pick a school.
So the first thing I would say that's important to know that this is really the field that you want to go in, because if you go to undergrad or you decide, okay, yes, I want to go into the field of speech language pathology, and you spend 4, maybe 5 years in undergrad, you have to go to graduate school. It's not an option if you want to work in different fields. So you want to make sure this is definitely the field that you want to be in. And you have to be ready to do undergrad as well as graduate. When you are in undergraduate school, making sure that you kind of develop really great study habits, because those study habits that you utilize in undergrad will be very beneficial in graduate school. Also with graduate school, I would suggest, if you can, not everyone can do this, because I know some people have families and things of that nature, and they already have a career jobs, but if you can, try not to work a full-time job, because grad school is very demanding, and it can be very overwhelming. What else? Don't wait till the last minute. Don't be a procrastinator, especially in grad school. I'm a procrastinator by nature. I know that now. So it can be difficult if you're a procrastinator and you're in grad school, because you have so many things going on. Like I said, you have practicums, you have classes, you have papers, you have presentations, you have all those things going on. So if you wait until the last minute to do those things, you're going to be a little, it's going to be a little bit stressful for you. So be organized, have a plan, prioritize.
Very good. So you've completed your undergraduate, you completed your graduate degree. When does getting your license come into play, and how did you think about getting your license at that time?
So so after graduate school, or during graduate school, actually, you can do it like at the end of your graduate school, or you can do it right afterwards, is what I would suggest. There's a test that you have to take in order to get your, so for speech language, let me back up. So for speech language pathology, we have two different things that we have to get. So we have a certification, which is a certificate of clinical competence. And then we have to obtain a license to practice state you are living in, or if you're going to be moving to a different state. So in order to get your clinical certificate of competence, you have to take a test. Okay. And the test is, oh my gosh, this is like over 20 years ago. I think it was like 200 questions, 250, and then it's timed. At the time, it was 2 hours. And so when you take that test, you have to prepare for it. So for us at my graduate program, we had what we call comps. So we did oral comps and written comps. And so the oral comps and written comps prepared us for taking our test to obtain our C's. We call them C's. And then also on your own time or with study groups, of course, but they have practice tests out there of the test that we have to take for our C's. So I took a couple of those, because you have to think like your textbook and not like what you would do if you were practicing in the field, because the questions are based on a textbook. So the comps the comps at the time for us got us prepared for the test for our C's. And then you take the test and hopefully you pass. And it's very important to have your C's, because if you don't have your C's, you can't really practice anywhere. like I said earlier, kind of the rules and guidelines changed over the years. So you have to have your C's. And then once you know what state you're going to be practicing in, you have to apply for licenses through that state. And then once you get your C's, we have a national organization, ASHA, that you have to every year. There are courses you have to take, so many hours you have to take. I think it's now within 3 years to obtain your C's and your licenses as well. And so you just have to stay on top of it each year, making sure you're taking those courses and to maintain your C's and your license.
Gotcha. So you went to grad school. Now you have your license. If you don't mind sharing, what was the salary of your first job after all those years of school, studying those exams, getting your license? What was the salary coming out of school back then?
So for me, because at the time I knew I wanted to work in the school system, and I worked at DISD for about 3 years, I decided that I did not work for the school district. I went in as a contractor. And the reason why I did that was because I made a little bit more money. And then you get a stipend if you contracted with the schools. And so I believe when I first started, I think I was at 23, 24, 25 an hour. That's because I decided to do contract and not work for the actual schools. I would have made less than that.
Understood. So explain your career progression there. So you're in school. How did you get to a hospital from being in the school?
So, like I said before, school system was my dream job, and DISD, which is Dallas Independent School District, that's where I landed. And I was there for about 3 years. And in my kind of second year, probably really after my first year, I was like, this isn't for me, the school system. And it could have been, at the time, I didn't know, coming from Mississippi, that Dallas Independent School District was one of the largest school districts in the state of Texas, and probably kind of compared to other states as well. So I had no idea what I was getting myself into. So I would suggest, if you are a new grad, that you go to a smaller school district first for that experience. So it was not what I thought it was, not what I thought that it was going to be. And so I decided to kind of venture out. So I then did some home health, and I was like, okay, home health's not for me either.
Do you mind describing what home health is?
Yes, so home health is where you actually go into the home, to your patient's home or your client's home, and you do therapy there. Or if they're like in daycare, kindergarten, you go to that location and you provide services there. So I didn't really, that wasn't my niche either. So then I decided to, I don't know, I met this lady who had a private practice. And so I decided to kind of work for her. But then at that time, I was like, okay, this is not what I thought it was either. So at that time, I started questioning my career. Did I make the right choice? So I was searching, and I found a PRN position at Children's Health. At the time, was Children's Medical Center. And out of whim, I applied for it. I didn't think that I was going to get it because I really didn't have a medical background in speech language pathology, because there are 2 different pathways you can take. You can take an educational pathway or a medical pathway. They're different. But I got called for an interview, and I interviewed, and they offered me the PRN position. And I think the reason why I got it, because in grad school, one of my practicums was at one of the medical schools in Jackson, even though it was outpatient. So that was beneficial for me. So I started at Children's. I was nervous because I had been educational, and now I had to switch gears to the medical aspect of the field. And so I started out PRN at Children's Health in their inpatient setting, and then I did some PRN and outpatient, decided to go full-time in inpatient. And then was promoted to team leader of the speech and the rehab aides, and then promoted to clinical manager of outpatient.
Explain getting promoted in a hospital setting. What would you advise people to think about what is needed to become promoted? And what was your emotions as they were giving you these jobs and these extra responsibilities?
So I think for me, because I'm more of a person who kind of likes to be in the background, and I never really thought that I would be managing anything. And so if I think back, I would say maybe taking on a leadership role. So if there are things that need to be done, and at the time I had no desire to be in leadership. So this was just kind of what I did. And so taking on the leadership role, covering when needed at other locations, helping my peers out as needed, being kind of calm in difficult situations, or because I am pretty laid back. And so I think those things kind of helped with me being promoted throughout the organization. And I was lucky because I never would have applied for any of these positions. And so it was actually my leaders that came to me and said, hey, we see something in you. We want you to apply for a team leader. We want you to apply for a clinical manager. And so for me, it definitely was pros and cons, because I don't, like I said, I'm not really I don't like to be in the spotlight. So I made a list of pros and cons, and I decided to give it a try. I kind of was doing it informally anyway, so why not do it officially and get the recognition for it? Did I answer your question? I feel like I didn't answer
It did. I think, as you mentioned, your main drivers were, one, you were already taking on management type responsibilities. And then the second thing was you had advocates within the organization that were really pushing you. So it was really you sitting down, making that list of pros and cons, and making a decision. And it's a big decision when you take on, really other people's careers and lives, yes, livelihood. So that's humongous. Now, talk to somebody who was in your situation, bouncing around jobs, questioning, did I make the right decision? I spent so much time in my life in this training. How would you advise somebody who's in that point in their career?
I guess my first piece of advice would be take the chance, take the leaps, right? Because when you're new in a career, you kind of just stay in that career because you're afraid to just say, just say this isn't what I thought it was. A lot of times we just kind of stick in there and hope it'll work out. But I would say take the leap, take the chance. Yes, it's scary. But at least if you do that, eventually you will kind of find where you want to be or where you should be. So take the leap of faith. And the second piece of advice I would give is be patient, because when you are going from school system, home health, private, PRN, inpatient, outpatient, you're going to have to be patient, because you do start questioning yourself and asking, am I in the right role? Am I in the right career? What am I doing? I knew I should have done this when I was in school. But be patient, because eventually you will kind of find where you should be and where you feel comfortable in your career.
So kind of give us an idea of your organization, everything that goes under you. How many people are reporting directly or indirectly to you? How do you describe your org chart that you manage?
So how many people?
An approximate number, doesn't have to be exact when I know people come
15
in and out.
to 17 people.
Mm-hmm.
15 to 17 people. And what was the other part of the question, Randall?
And kind of what is under you as far as the actual functions and what are they doing?
Okay. So let's see. So right under me, I have a team leader, and she is responsible for assisting with the daily operations of the clinic. And she also sees patients. Then we have two front office staff members who they are responsible for because in the outpatient setting, in order to receive therapy services, the patient has to have authorization through their provider, which could be commercial, which is like your United Healthcare, Cigna, or Medicaid. So they're responsible for checking the patient's benefits to make sure that their benefits do cover therapy, occupational, speech, physical therapy, and also scheduling the patient appointments for each therapist. And then we have two rehab aides, and the rehab aides are responsible for assisting the therapist with their patients, so they're a second pair of hands. They're also responsible, I call them, as well as our front office team, kind of the backbone of the clinic, because they do the ordering. They keep the gyms organized, the treatment rooms organized. They do a little bit of everything. They wear multiple hats. And then I have a speech therapy team. I have 3 speech therapists right now, and they're responsible for speech therapy. So speech therapy can range from language therapy, articulation, it can be feeding. And then I have occupational therapy, which kind of focuses on the upper extremities, fine motor things, and then physical therapy, who is mostly gross motor, walking, and things of that nature.
Very good. So if somebody were to say, what technology that you use today, or what technology do I need to become, knowledgeable about? What sets of technology, whether that's a program, a system, what would you say technology that a person needs to have proficiency in to do the work that you do?
So I can't really say there is specific technology. If you're gonna be a speech language pathologist, you will need to kind of be aware, and also for occupational physical therapy, there are different applications out there on your phones, on your iPads. Just be aware of what's available to utilize with your patients. And then if you, for speech therapy, if you're working on communication, say you have a patient that's nonverbal, we have Boardmaker that's out there that will help you kind of create a communication board for that patient. You need to be familiar with that and how it kind of works and runs. And of course, depending on the organization that you work with, you have to be efficient in that kind of documentation system. But each organization is different in regards to what system they have in place.
Gotcha. Now let's talk about the building wealth part. When you came out of grad school, received your license, how did you think about building wealth, saving for your future? What was your initial thoughts?
So my aunt, as you can see, my aunt gave a lot of good advice. She kind of talked to me about making sure that when I was in school, whether that was undergrad or graduate school, that I didn't take out the maximum amount of loans, right? Because you can take out however much you want to take out, but she always told me you're going to have to pay that back. So only really take out what you need for the necessities, right? Your classes, your books, things of that nature. So for the most part, that's what I did. So when I graduated, I did not have all this. I mean, of course, paying back loans it takes years and years and years, but I didn't have thousands and thousands of dollars that I had to pay back. So I was able to pay my loans off not quickly, but I paid them off in a reasonable amount of time. The other advice she gave me is that when I was on campus at that time, like 25 years ago, and I don't know if they still do this, but different credit card companies would have like stations set up on campus, especially at HBCUs. And she talked to me and said, do not sign up for those credit cards, because it will kind of impact your credit score and things of that nature, because that too, you're going to have to pay back at some point. So I did not open any credit cards up. And the other thing she told me was when I graduated from grad school, do not go and get you a car, because I had a car when I was in school, and people would laugh at me because I drove that car for years. I mean, so don't get a car. You don't need a car note. You're just starting out. You need to focus on saving your money. And so that's what I did as well. And then she talked to me about making sure I invested in my employer's retirement plan. And so even when because before when I said I sit out a year, I worked for American Honda Finance. I opened up a retirement plan with that company. And then when I kind of switched careers, I moved that money forward into kind of the accounts that I have now. And credit score is very important as well.
So your auntie, how did she garner that much, I would say, respect that, hey, this is somebody I need to listen to? What did she do for you growing up to say, I should listen to this individual?
She always was believed in kind of what I could do and my potential. Always was positive and encouraging. And always kind of there. And plus she was, had moved away from home and was kind of doing things on her own. So I was able to kind of mimic her, kind of see what it would be like to be on your own and how you should kind of manage yourself and your finances.
So what is next for you? You've had a career, expanded many different job titles, different organizations. What is the next step for you? Are you happy where you are and really want to just hone in your skill set at this level?
I don't really know. I don't know. I don't know if I will continue on the path that I'm on and kind of stay in the therapy world, or if I want to venture out and do something different. I haven't really figured it out yet.
Gotcha. And as far as the day-to-day, how do you manage, you have management responsibilities, you have probably some internal corporate reporting you have to perform. How do you juggle all those different things to a level that's satisfactory to you?
I have to, organization is not my strong point. But I have to try to be organized, and I have to prioritize my day. And what I'm learning is that if there is something that I really need to work on and something that really needs to get done, it doesn't matter what's going on around me, because you can get pulled into many directions. I have to make sure I focus on that one thing and get that one thing done and get it done well. Because I realize if I'm focusing on so many things, then those different things, they're not going to be done well, right? So focus on that one thing that you have to get done, you do it well, and then you do all those other things around it. And for me, honestly, I'm a sticky note girl. I write everything down. If I'm kind of talking with staff members or on the phone or whatever, I'm grabbing a sticky note and writing it down, because that too helps me kind of stay organized. And sometimes if I don't have a sticky note and I'm talking to a staff member, I grab a piece of paper and just start jotting things down. So that's kind of the system that works for me.
What would you say your number one management hack is? Like if you were going to give somebody advice who wants to manage people within an organization, what is the number of advice either you've received or you've experienced and that you're willing to share?
I think what I have learned, and it's been a very interesting learning experience, is you have to make your team feel like that you're one team. So whenever I lead from the bottom up, right? I'm there to support my team members. I'm there to support their professional growth. So whenever I talk about my team, I say we and us. And I also, even though I am kind of an introvert, I what I've learned is with my team members, I have that professional relationship with them, but they can also, I also have an open door policy. And so they can come into my office, or sometimes it may be outside of the office, you know, if we're at dinner or something. I tell them whatever you say here, that's outside of the walls of the clinic, that stays outside the walls of the clinic. So my reaction to them may be different versus if we were inside the clinic. And so that lets them know that I'm personable. And so they can, you know, come to me, ask me any question. I mean, sometimes I hear some weird stuff, but I rather for them to do that, to come to me with rumors and things of that nature, than to kind of just talk amongst themselves and not really get the needed answer, feel like they're supported.
All right. So for my last question, if you were talking to your younger self, what would be the number one advice you would give them if they want to become a speech pathologist? What is the key thing that you say, if I had that nugget, everything would have been so much smoother?
My younger self. I think it would have been important to really tap into the counseling services available in high school. Because for me, I did not do that, which I think that should be kind of on the counselor to lead and guide you. But you should, if that's not there, you should take the initiative and do it yourself. At the time, I did not know that. So that's why I went through so many different changes with my degree. I mean, with my degree, undecided biology, communicative disorders, and I had to go to school during the summer, and I had to go to Illinois to try to catch up. So to prevent all that in high school, go to your counselor, initiate those services, and try to figure out what your career path will be. And I know sometimes you may not know, but at least have an idea. And it's okay if you go to college in that first year, you're undecided, because you're just going to take general courses anyway, right? So you don't have to rush into anything, but at least have some idea. So then when you get to college, you can kind of figure out, okay, yes, this is kind of my niche. I think this is the path that I want to take. So be okay with that, because I think sometimes we feel like, you know, people, well, what are you going to major in? Or, you know, what is your career going to be? And we feel like we have to tell them something. It's okay to say, I don't know. And so I would definitely tap into counseling services in high school. It's okay if you don't quite know what you want your career path to be undecided. That's fine, because you're going to take general classes. But then too, once you get to undergrad or college, take on those other kind of be involved, I guess is what I'm trying to say, outside of your classes, outside of your friend group, because those things are beneficial for you as well, like student organizations, you know, traveling, doing your practicums out of state, things in that nature. What do you call it when you go out the country? Transfer student, not transfer.
Study abroad.
Study abroad, that's it. Studying abroad. So take those opportunities, because those things are important, and they will help you to build kind of your skills, your abilities, your confidence, but also help you when you out there in the real world trying to interview and things of that nature, and figure out what your career path will be.
Awesome. That's great advice. So thank you very much, Dana, for coming on my YouTube channel. It has been enjoyable hearing about your career path. I think a lot of people will learn a lot from what you've been through, and hopefully that will inspire them to choose the career that you have. So thank you very much.
You're welcome, Randall.
This is a production of RSA Deasil Advisors, a wealth management firm servicing the community of licensed professional counselors, psychologists, and psychiatrists. If you are in need of financial guidance, we would be happy to serve you.